Welcome friends. This is a web novel. Imagination is key to enjoying. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Don't forget to give me your feedback.
As the two of us finished eating, the sounds of the ruffling of vegetation filled the area. It came from all sides, like a piece of cardboard being ripped apart right next to my ears. In the dark, cold forest, disgusting creatures would come out and attack any unsuspecting victims. Looks like it's just the two of us tonight. You can watch my back. Ah, you trust me that much? Sure. She put her hands on her cheeks and squeezed them. Hee, so much pressure. I found a good spot in the open where I could get a good view of the entire battlefield. The zombies were going to show up very soon. In all directions, I could see the thick, brown trunks and dense green leaves of the trees. Just a little further, however, there was nothing for the eye to see except pure darkness. The ruffling eventually increased in ferocity. I broke up my minions into groups of 5 so I could more easily coordinate them. I positioned them so that there was a group every few meters. If they all managed to stay alive, there shouldn't be any openings for zombies to get through. If stragglers do make it through, I would have to rely on Chloe and my own strength. My minions weren't nearly fast enough to catch up to a zombie if it ran straight towards me. I had just barely enough minions to completely surround the area, so I didn't want to expend any just standing next to me. Horrible rotten creatures eventually started peeking their heads from the forest. I kept my minions back until they approached us. From every angle, the entire area was filled with the bodies of these decaying monsters. Slowly, they began approaching us. They came like a swarm. Suddenly, several incredibly fast zombies charged out of the forest. They ran on all fours like animals. They were immensely fast, like a cheetah. With erratic movements and unpredictable attacks, my line of minions was starting to get into intense combat. The crawling zombies swiped and jumped at my minions. I had equipped most of my minions with basic weaponry like swords and spears. However, these zombies were uncomfortably fast and my minions struggled to hit them with their slow reaction time and heavy weapons. Those things are bad news, Chloe said. Do you think you can go engage them? I don't want them cutting down my wall of minions before the main wave. Wah, that's a bit much, don't you think? Ugh, you're useless. She pouted. Hey. I'm just a weak little girl, you can treat me a little better, you know. Can you use a bow? I asked. Well, I suppose I could. I'm nowhere as good as that elf boy though. It'll do. She grabbed a large metal bow from her inventory. It was much more complex looking and heavy than the longbow that Ilrich used. It appeared to be much more technical than the standard wooden longbow. She conjured a long white arrow from her inventory and placed it onto the bow. I've never shot one before, so don't make fun of me. She aimed it towards the swift zombies which were causing chaos in my front line. After adjusting it, she let go and the arrow zipped through the air, hitting a zombie in the leg. It slowed the zombie down a little, but it still managed to continue attacking my minions. Ah, these things are pretty hard to use. Hit them in the head next time. That's easy for you to say. She pulled another arrow out and aimed it again. There were around 8 hasty, crawling zombies which my minions struggled to hit. The main wave of sluggish walking zombies was also about to reach my front line. There would be problems if my minions continued to be whittled down by the crawling zombies. After a few seconds, she let go of the tent string and the arrow zipped through the air. This time, it hit a zombie in the neck, instantly killing it. Yay! Good job. Chloe continued to fire her bow as the zombies approached us. I needed to focus on managing the movement of my minions since the main wave of zombies was about to crash into my front line like a tsunami. The zombies got closer and closer until they suddenly began attacking my minions. The crawling zombies were still around, making a mess of my troops. I focused my minions to engage in groups and to pull back whenever they took a significant amount of damage. However, I quickly realized that the situation was rather dire. With our reduced manpower, especially without Ilrich, these fast zombies were constantly staying alive and attacking my minions. I needed to get rid of them quickly. With no other option, I pulled back several of my warrior minions and focused them on the fast, almost unhittable zombies. They were the only minions which could somewhat consistently engage with them. Chloe was shooting arrow after arrow, gradually whittling down at the wall of zombies which were approaching. Suddenly, one of the crawling zombies broke through the line and charged straight toward me. Shit. I drew my silver sword and prepared to fight it. It quickly pounced and tried to jump on my face. Chloe swiftly got in the way and it smashed its face into the hard surface of the diamond shield she was holding. Liquid and flesh splatter on the ground as I tried to recover from hitting its head. I moved in and sliced it as fast as I could with my silver sword. In one swing, I was able to cut off its head and it evaporated into the air. That was close. Suddenly, in another direction, another crawling zombie broke through the line and started charging at me. This is not good. Chloe was forced to stop firing the bow and change to her platinum sword. The lustrous blade glimmered as it fell down towards the head of the zombie. Cleanly and swiftly, the zombie's head flew off, and green liquid splashed all over the ground where the body hit the soft loose dirt. This was going to be a long night. Deep in another part of the woods, a separate group of students fought for their survival. "Molly, I need support over here," Lewis called out. The small group of friends defended with everything they had. The zombies were now beginning to get past the first layer of traps that they had set to defend their small settlement. With a measly group of 6 people, the students lacked the capability to rest. The small group had split up into 2 groups, 3 people per team. Molly rushed over to Lewis and conjured a bomb in her hand. "Block your ears." She threw the bomb into the crowd of zombies, blowing them to smithereens. Limbs, blood and flesh splattered all over the ground, decorating the ground with decayed pieces of human anatomy. One of them yelled in pain in the distance. They're biting my leg," Jack screamed. "Crap, Molly, do you have any more grenades?" Lewis asked frantically. "No. I'm out for 50 seconds. As they spoke, Jack's flesh was being chewed by a zombie. The viscous red liquid flowed all over the ground. He screamed in pain as the zombie clung to him. "Someone help me." Lewis turned around and ran towards Jack. He pulled out a lesser stone sword and swung at the zombie that was biting Jack. More zombies approached from behind as he frantically tried to free himself from the jaws of the vicious zombie. As soon as Jack was freed, Lewis was then attacked by another zombie. The 2 of them scrambled to try to get away, but not without sustaining scratched from the zombies. On the other side of the settlement, things were not looking much better. "We need reinforcements here. If we don't get back up soon, we'll be overrun. Henry, can you see how things are going on the other side?" "I just heard a scream from the other side. I think they're probably struggling as well." "Damn it. When will we get a break from this bullshit?" Jordy shouted in vain as the zombies continued to endlessly pour into their camp. They had struggled to whittle down the numbers of the main wave, and there seemed to be a never-ending stream of zombies walking straight into their base. He took out his silver sword, which he had spent a very large amount of time grinding for, and raised it. Swing after swing, he slashed frantically at the increasing number of zombies which were slowly but steady flowing in like a fog. The flesh and blood of the zombies flew out as the sword sliced into them. However, his arms eventually began getting sore and his movements got more and more sluggish. "Gah! Ashley, can you move your turret over here?" It took a few moments before he could hear a reply. Finally, a panting Ashley shouted in response. I can hardly hold up over here. I just can't." The turret fired bullets into the swarm every once in a while. It was a pretty low-leveled turret, so it wasn't nearly strong enough to be able to make a significant dent in the horde. "Fuck all of this, let's just accept that man's offer. But we'll lose all of our freedom. Fuck our freedom. At this rate, we'll all die." In the middle of the settlement, there sat a man, wearing a dark hoodie over his clothes. He had come a few hours prior, giving the camp an offer. He was initially turned down, but as their situation rapidly deteriorated, the students were basically left with no other choice. Beside the man, there sat a boy who had come with him. The boy said nothing the entire time, leaving all the talking to the man. The 2 of them watched as the other students struggled to survive in this horror. After a few moments, he was approached by a boy, covered in blood, sweat and the flesh of the zombies. His face showed complete defeat as he lethargically walked up to them. "We accept your offer." "Good." The moment the 2 heard that, the boy made his way towards the front line. Despite how quiet the boy was, his strength was undeniable. He slowly ambled towards Ashley's group and looked at the horde of zombies which approached. Both Ashley and Henry were at the brink of collapse, and it was obvious that they weren't able to continue fighting. This boy, Callum French, was at one point the 5th-ranked human on the planet. He raised his right arm, balls of light gathered around him. They floated just barely above his shoulders and the entire area was illuminated. At his command, rays of light rained down and struck the zombies. The balls of light were like cannons, shooting lasers into the horde of zombies. The lasers fried the zombies like a magnifying glass, sizzling holes in their bodies before they collapsed to the ground. After just a few cycles, the size of the zombie horde had significantly decreased. His light penetrated through the skin of the zombies until their bodies eventually disappeared into nothingness. The man guided Ashley and Henry back towards the center of the settlement as Callum began making his way to the other side, preparing to fight the other horde. He slowly walked across the settlement, past the wooden huts and fireplaces that the students had built. Eventually, he was greeted by a severely injured Jack alongside Lewis and Molly, who were also on their last legs. Again, Callum simply conjured a few balls of light, which floated around his body, after quickly scanning the zombies, he fired them, burning the zombies from the outside. His rays of light cut them down, one by one until the second horde was practically eliminated. The dying corpses gradually dissipated into the air as Callum brought the balls of light back into his body. The group of students eventually gathered at the center of the camp where the man stood up on a log and spoke to them. As per the deal, your settlement is now ours and you are now members of our group. The students appeared disheartened, but this was the only outcome for them. In exchange for their freedom, they got to live. These guys smell terrible, her face scrunched up as she walked past the slowly evaporating corpses of spoiled flesh. Sighing, she approached the zombies that managed to break through the front line of minions. Managing to slip in between two of the zombies, she slid past them whilst hacking at their disfigured legs, causing them to collapse as they desperately swiped into the air. She quickly pivoted her momentum by plunging her sword into the ground and approached the zombies who sat in a pool of their own blood. With a sharp glint in her eye, she swung her sword in a flash and decapitated the struggling zombies. She looked back at me with a playful smile, beaming as she cut down the crawling zombies. Hey, stop looking at me like that. So annoying. I shook my silver sword, and blood splattered on the ground, the edge of the blade gleaming with a murderous glint. Ugh, I guess I had no choice. Zombies were slowly sneaking through my line of minions. For some reason, the number of zombies tonight seemed to be much denser than the previous night. My minions were enough to take out all of the zombies. Granted, Ilrich was keeping watch the previous night, but I doubt that he really did that much. There must be some difficulty gradient that I didn't know about. It was probably around time to start building my army. I had already built plenty of resource-gathering minions and the people around me appeared to be quite belligerent as well. I would probably need to send out escorts with my resource-gathering minions. Oh well, that can wait until tomorrow morning. The slight stream of zombies which broke past my front line wasn't exactly that much of a problem. Even with my quite lacking sword skills, it wasn't too difficult to cut them down. If anything, the fatigue I felt in my arms was the worst of it. Once the two of us took care of the stragglers, I focused my attention back on the main battle and remotely controlled my minions. I controlled them in groups and focused on cutting down the density of the zombies. At the moment, the main issue was not the actual attacks of the zombies, but if we do get overwhelmed, my minions simply wouldn't be able to cut them down fast enough. They had relatively tough flesh, and even for strong minions, it takes a lot of strength to cut through huge piles of bodies. I carefully maneuvered them. I made sure to cut holes in the zombies' advance and force them to not be able to push with too great of numbers all at the same time. Eventually, the number of zombies got smaller and smaller. They were no longer coming in like a broken dam. Instead, they slowly walked into my wall and got cut down. After a little while, there were only a few zombies coming at a time, which could be easily taken care of by my minions. I took this opportunity to have a rest and look over the area. Chloe was standing beside me. She had just put her weapons back into her inventory. AAA, that was tiring, wasn't it? I guess so. Hee, your face is like a doll, never changing. She teased. Now that I thought about it, did I appear cold to everyone else? Oh well. By the way, Chloe. Yes? What were you before you were transported here? A human, of course. Oh my. My mistake for asking such a poorly worded question. Take 2, what was your life like before you were transported here? Aren't we getting intimate? Just tell me. Not just yet, I want to get to know you a little more. She took a deep breath, the air was filled with a melancholic tension. Once I feel like it, I'll tell you everything. Asterisk. I was able to get a decent night of sleep with my minions on guard. Several of my minions took significant damage in the main fight and a few were even completely destroyed. However, the number was small enough so that I could easily replace them. As I pulled myself up, I was met with a message. You have leveled up. Level up. Level 5-level 6. Rewards. Unlocked. Elite Minion Positions. Unlocked. Minion Leadership. Advanced Warrior Minion X1. More crafting recipes. Inventory space, plus 3000. Elite Minion Positions? Suddenly, I was prompted to another screen. You have 3 positions to assign. Elite Minions. All elite minions are capable of minion leadership, and all elite minions will have priority when it comes to automatic resource allocation. You may freely change the allocation of the positions, however, there is a 2-day cooldown. Rook, unassigned. Increase strength and attack of minion by 300% and give them overload skill. Bishop, unassigned. Increase stamina of minion by 400% and give them desperate defense skill. Knight, unassigned. Increase speed of minion by 75% and give them farsight skill. From what it looked like, I could assign a minion to each of the positions and they would receive the subsequent buffs. I decided to have a look at my minion menu to see which ones I would assign. All of the positions were somewhat combat-related, so I was most likely going to just put my warrior minion and my other combat-related minions in. Only when I opened my menu did I realize how many minions I actually had. Advanced System Controls. Resource Division, 37 minions. 3x Woodcutter Minion. 2x Scout Minion, Mining. 10x Scout Minion, Woodcutting. 6x Scout Minion, Resource Gathering. 6x Scout Minion, Hunting. 1x Scout Minion, Farming. 8x Basic Scout Minion. Combat Division, 30 minions. 1x Advanced Warrior Minion. 1x Warrior Minion. 4x Scout Minions, Swordplay. 4x Scout Minions, Archery. 12x Scout Minion, Combat. 8x Basic Scout Minion. Utility Division, 5 minions. 3x Builder Minion. 2x Basic Scout Minion. I thought about it for a little while before I assigned all of the elite roles to the minions. Elite Minions. Rook, Advanced Warrior Minion, Level 1. Bishop, Warrior Minion, Level 9. Knight, Scout Minion, Archery, Level 4. The Archery Scout Minion wasn't really a great choice, but I didn't have enough specialized Warrior Minions to fill all the positions, so I figured that a far sight skill would be best utilized with an Archer-type minion. There were a lot of different systems I had to consider now. I would need to make sure that I keep track of all of them. Anyways, time to take care of these kidnappers. I thought about my strategy to catch these kidnappers. I decided to go see what Chloe was doing. She was sleeping in the other hut. I had just about finished organizing my minions for the day, so I didn't have much else I needed to do. I made my way over to the crudely built and newly repaired wooden hut which had previously burnt to the ground. I knocked on the door. Chloe. After a few moments, I heard a thump, then some footsteps before the door opened before me. Ah, you're awake already? She muttered lethargically. Get ready, we're going to kill some people today. Hee, there's no better way to start the day than hearing something like that. Just hurry up. Okie. She closed the door again and began preparing some things. I decided to take this opportunity to observe my new elite minions. I decided to keep them nearby since they were only useful for combat purposes. Beside me stood my Rook, Bishop and Knight. Rook, which was my advanced warrior minion, held a longsword in one arm, instead of the standard shortsword held by other combat minions. It was a little bit bigger and slightly sturdier looking as well. After around a minute, Chloe came out of the hut and greeted me again. Ooh, did you get some new minions? She asked. Well, that's basically what happened. So, how are we going to find them? I sent out some scout minions to search for them until I get a message. We'll just patrol the woods until we find one. Chloe conjured her platinum sword and held it in her hand. The two of us, along with my 3 elite minions, made our way into the forest. I could explore as much as I wanted, as I could always get my minions to lead me back to the settlement. The only thing was that I didn't really want to wander too far into enemy territory. Step by step, I made my way through the forest, making sure I didn't trip on the vegetation and unstable ground. It wasn't all that difficult to traverse. The branches of the trees sometimes gave a pretty good ledge to hold onto. It was quite dark, even in the middle of the day. Only slight rays of light penetrated the dense, bushy leaves of the trees. We walked through in a straight line, hoping we'd eventually find someone or something. Somewhat in the distance, I could see the silhouette of a robe or maybe a cape. The person was also holding a large stick that looked somewhat like a staff. The figure walked closer to me. Their entire body was covered by some sort of black cloth, however, their face was exposed. It was a middle-aged man. His clothing looked pretty similar to the clothing of the previous kidnappers. Up close, I had a much better view of the staff he was holding. It kind of looked like a long wooden club covered by some moss with some metal, gem stuff attached near the top. Looks like we've got company. You can take care of him, right? Just don't kill him. I'll need to speak with him. Ha, of course. The man began taking steps backwards. Suddenly, I noticed that he was lowering his staff towards me, and instinctively, I moved my head to the side. The front of his staff flashed white before a crystal formed and was shot out from his staff, piercing the trees behind me. That was fast. I noticed the sound of trees crashing to the ground. The entire area suddenly was encapsulated in a greenish tint, like some sort of radar. Without a moment of hesitation, he pointed his staff again at me. This time, it flashed red. The crystal forming at the tip of his staff was much larger with an explosive aura around it. Chloe rushed forwards to engage the man. I got my elite archer, Knight, to raise its bow and aim at the mage. Well, at least that's what his powers seemed to be like. Dirt scattered all over the place as Chloe's harsh footsteps pushed through the uneven ground. Crap, this person was targeting me for some reason. I didn't have a shield on hand, so I would have to dodge his next attack. His attack seemed extremely fast, so I wasn't sure if I would even be able to make it out unscathed. The red bolt was suddenly released from his staff. It traveled straight towards me at a very fast speed. I jumped to the side as fast as I could, but the explosion of the trees behind caused quite a mess in the area. He almost immediately began charging his next attack. Chloe swung her platinum sword at her, and the man was forced to raise his staff in order to block the blade. The prismarine white blade crashed into the hard wooden staff, causing a dent. However, the staff was stronger than it looked, and the man created more distance between the two of them. After missing several shots, Knight finally managed to fire an arrow on target, hitting the man in the leg. It wasn't enough to send him toppling to the ground, and this time he aimed his attack at Chloe. His attacks didn't take very long to charge, and after gathering some sort of energy, he fired it once again. Chloe pulled out her diamond shield, and the attack blasted into it. The shockwave sent both of them crashing to the ground alongside several fallen trees. However, Chloe regained her footing first and kicked the staff out of the man's hand. The wooden staff bounced around on the ground before landing a few meters in front of me. Slowly, I walked forwards and picked it up off the dirt. Chloe stepped on the man's chest and held her blade on his neck. As she disabled him, she looked over at me, waiting for me to make my way over. I walked up to the man and looked down at him. He looked up at me in fear as he lay in the loose dirt and scarce grass of the forest floor. "So, I'll be expecting an explanation." He croaked in pain before finally opening his mouth to speak. "I won't tell you anything." Ugh, looks like I have to think of some torture techniques. However, before I could think about methods of maximizing pain in a human being, Chloe decided to speak up first. "Hey buddy," she pressed the point of her blade into his neck, "that's not an option, I'm afraid." A gentle stream of blood dribbled out from his neck. Slowly, the sword was pushed further and further into the skin on his neck, a centimeter at a time. Wait, no, stop." She didn't take any notice of these words, continuing the slow descent of her blade. More and more blood began flowing out of his neck. "Wait. Okay, I'll tell you anything, just don't kill me." Well, that was easy. She left her sword pointed at his neck, and I walked closer to him. The pitiful, dirty man was laying on the ground, covered in vegetation. "Why were you trying to kill us?" It was an order." It didn't seem like he was lying. "Who was the order by?" "A man." "I'm going to need more specifics." "I can't give any more, they'll punish me." "What a pain." "How about this, I promise to protect you with all of my resources, under the condition that you'll tell me everything." "They're our enemy, not you." "Are really?" "Not really. But what needs to be done. I promise." I gestured for Chloe to withdraw her sword and take her foot off of his chest. Slowly, he coughed a few times before getting into a seated position. "Okay, as long as you can stop them from hurting me. I have plenty of manpower to do that." He took a deep breath. The unworthy me had finally gained his trust. It was a pretty high-stress situation, so his decisions-making wasn't exactly top-notch. Even with his trust, I would have to take his words with a grain of salt. "So, they have someone who's really strong, they offered to defend us from zombies in return for making us a part of their army. Do you have any description of this really strong person?" I think he was in the top 5 ranked people in the world at one point. He can shoot light and stuff?" "Shoot light? I'm going to need more details." He's a high school student, and he makes these balls of light which shoot rays and burns the zombies." "I don't know much more." Looked like that was the extent of the description I was going to receive. Judging by the fact that this person might have been in the top 5 at one point, they were likely quite strong. Although, if they aren't there anymore, they may have either lost their position to another, or they may have been judged incorrectly like I was. At the moment, I didn't have a great deal of information to work with. "Now, where are these people located?" I asked. They take over settlements, so they have a lot of different bases." This sounded problematic. If they had lots of different settlements to work with, it would be quite hard to take them down at once. "Where did you come from?" I asked. "I came from my old settlement, which was taken over by them." "By the way, what's your name?" "It's Jonas." Well, I didn't seem to recognize it. "So where is your old settlement?" "It's about a few hundred meters that way." He pointed deep into the forest. As soon as he signaled, I sent Bishop to scout in that direction. I gave it the command to return if it locates a camp. I didn't fully trust this man's words either, so I wanted to send a scout to check before I pushed in. Anyways, I was running out of uses for this person. "So, are you guys going to protect me now?" he asked hesitantly. Sure." I still had information to claw out of him, although I would like to discard him soon. Just judging by his personality, I didn't really want to have him around. Granted, Chloe's personality wasn't exactly normal, but it was reassuring in its own way. This man would be nothing but a liability. Chloe walked up to me as I thought about what I was going to do. It was probably good to go back to camp for now and gather resources and prepare for the next day. If Bishop comes back with news that there is in fact a settlement, we will probably raid it the next day. Chloe, my minions, and I began making our way back the way we came. Through the dense shrubbery and thick, dark brown trees. The loose dirt crackled as we walked through. There were scarce patches of grass, although they were more rare than you'd expect. Like a stray dog, the man followed behind us. It was annoying, but I wanted to wait until Bishop came back before I got rid of him. Just in case he was incorrect or lying. I guess I'd have to deal with this for now. I was still holding on to his long, solid staff and I wondered what I was going to do with it. I looked in my shop to see if I could maybe sell it. Sell. 1x renewed magic staff equals 15 tokens. Wait, I actually could sell it, for quite an extravagant amount as well. That was quite nice. Without hesitation, I agreed to the digital offer and the staff vanished from my hands. As the man watched the staff disappear, he spoke to me from behind. Could I have my staff back? Sorry, but I didn't put it into my inventory, I sold it. He faced suddenly looked at me with shock. What do you mean? We're going to protect you, aren't we? What do you need the staff for? I guess so. We continued on our way back to my settlement. The sun was pretty much in the center of the sky, so I assumed that it was near midday. I still had plenty of time before night, so I should probably make some improvements to camp. I unlocked some new crafting recipes, so I might be able to make some nice upgrades. After several minutes of walking, we finally reached the large open area. My huts, my campfire and my various other pieces of architecture all sat there waiting for us. Now let's see what I can craft. There were a very large number of weapons recipes that had been unlocked. I looked at some of their descriptions. They appeared to be split into 3 main categories: standard, magical and demonic. Each weapon had different requirements to be crafted. From extremely large amounts of resources to contracts to sacrifices. However, each weapon had its own unique abilities and effects. I scanned through them one at a time, having a look at what I was going to get. I decided to look at the swords first. Crafting A standard weapons. Diamond sword. 1x hardened diamond. 200x wood. Platinum sword. 4x platinum. 50x iron. 10x gold. Obsidian sword. 5x obsidian. 10x ultra hardened stone. All of the standard weapons didn't have any special effects, however, they all had stats that were significantly higher than the weapon I was wielding. Some of the items needed, such as hardened diamond, was crafted from another material. For example, hardened diamond was crafted from 50 diamonds and ultra-hardened stone was crafted from 1,000 rocks each. Further down, I reached the magical weapons. Crafting magical weapons. Fire-breathing sword. This sword can produce fire that covers the entire blade. The fire cannot be extinguished unless the user commands it to. 1x flaming ember. 10x hardened iron. 5x platinum. Blood blade. The sword gets permanently stronger the more blood it consumes. It favors human blood over animal blood. 10,000x meat. Knife of Electromasters, can conjure thousands of volts at the blade. Can be turned on and off at will. 10x hardened copper. 10x hardened zinc. There were even items that required several different materials to craft. The flaming ember required 10 hardened coal and a flame rod, which apparently requires 100 coal, 50 iron and 1,000 wood. It was a significant investment. However, the best weapons were still to come. Reading the description of the demonic weapons, they sounded incredibly strong. Each demonic weapon contains a demon. The demon can be summoned to perform various actions or to strengthen the weapon. Only the user of the weapon and other users of demonic weapons are able to see a summoned demon. If your willpower gets too weak, the demon may escape out of the weapon, resulting in the weapon becoming obsolete. To seal a demon within a weapon, you must complete a contract. The crafting recipes seemed somewhat esoteric. Crafting A demonic weapons. Mayuri Lukii sword. 1x Mayuri contract. 100x ultra hardened stone. Azazel no Yo sword. 1x Azazel contract. 5x flaming ember. Nija Tnmo. 1x Nija contract. 50x hardened iron. There weren't any descriptions next to each of the weapons, but it was implied that they all had unique special abilities. From what I saw, I decided that I would try to get my ISEKAI, because rocks were something that I could easily train my minions to gather, and it was simple enough to just constantly gather rocks. I wasn't exactly sure what the contract entailed, but I could get it whenever I was ready. I looked at my minions and contemplated how I would begin grinding for these weapons. I would get the majority of my scout minions to become mining scout minions in order to efficiently grind for this weapon. With my new elite minions, I didn't really have to worry about the combat side of things as much, although if I did want to raid the settlement, I likely would need a significant army. It would be somewhat awkward to try to organize my minion in this way, but it should be doable. Advanced System Controls. Resource Division, 61 minions. 3x Woodcutter Minion. 2x Scout Minion, Mining. 10x Scout Minion, Woodcutting. 6x Scout Minion, Resource Gathering. 6x Scout Minion, Hunting. 1x Scout Minion, Farming. 32x Basic Scout Minion. Combat Division, 30 minions. 1x Advanced Warrior Minion. 1x Warrior Minion. 4x Scout Minions, Swordplay. 4x Scout Minions, Archery. 12x Scout Minion, Combat. 8x Basic Scout Minion. Utility Division, 5 minions. 3x Builder Minion. 2x Basic Scout Minion. For the time being, I would begin training my minions in mining. Aside from that, I wrote a line of code for my minion manager. When rocks greater than 1100, craft ultra-hardened stone. There was no way I was going to fit all of the rocks in my inventory, so I was practically forced to craft the rocks into ultra-hardened stone whenever I had a pretty large number. With that, I decided to have a look in my inventory. Inventory 3012/6350. 1x Lesser Stone Axe, durability 52%. 1x Silver Sword, durability 94%. 1x Lesser Stone Sword, durability 79%. 15x Iron. 7x Gold. 3x Diamond. 2998x Wood. 156x Apples. 500x Leaves. 209x Meat. 504x Rocks. Token balance 29.872. I realized that I didn't need the stone short sword anymore, so I decided to sell it to the shop. Sell. 1x Lesser Stone Sword equals 0.5 tokens. It wasn't a great deal, but I had no use for it anymore. At this point I had over 30 tokens. I decided to look in the shop and see what I could spend it on. Shop refreshes every day. Minor Minion Recipe, 25 tokens. Permanent Minion Efficiency Buff, 10 token. Spear Minion Recipe, 7 tokens. That's perfect. Conveniently, the Minor Minion Recipe was just sitting in the shop. This way, I didn't have to constantly train scout minions into mining scout minions, and I would be able to work with more efficiency. The Permanent Minion Efficiency Buff was also quite tempting, but at the moment, I really needed minor minions. With that, I purchased the recipe and had a look at it. To craft a single minor minion, it was 500 rocks and 20 meat. It wasn't actually as expensive as I expected it to be. Although I did have to claw into my rock supply in order to make more, it wasn't too bad of an investment. I already had enough to craft one, so I decided to craft it. With that, I had my first minor minions. Slowly but surely, I'll grind enough resources to craft the weapon. Author note, this is just in case you forgot how some things worked. I'll probably include a short index at the end of every chapter. It'll explain some new things as well, so it is recommended that you read it. Index. Skills. Overload. Whenever this minion destroys an entity, it gains a temporary passive strength buff. The more enemies and the stronger the enemies are, the greater this minion scales in terms of strength and speed. Desperate Defense. The lower the health of this minion, the stronger and fast it becomes. When it detects that it is being overrun, it will invoke the Overload skill and also the Vampire skill. Far Sight. The minions is able to zoom in its vision like a camera. The further away from an enemy it is, the stronger its attack becomes. Vampire. Whenever this minion damages an entity, it regains a portion of health and stamina dependent on the amount of damage inflicted. As always, my minions would always be collecting resources. However, I'd like to speed up the process if I could. At the moment, I didn't really know how to gather rocks by myself. I guess I could pick them up off the ground, but that would be so inefficient I might as well just sleep instead. I could craft a pickaxe, but I didn't know where to go to gather the rocks. My scout minions traveled the general area and informed me of a pretty big mountain just a few hundred meters from here. I assumed that if I just smacked the side of it, I would just gather it like how I gathered wood. However, before I did that, I wanted to talk with Chloe. Chloe, how exactly does your ability work? Huh? Ah, you want to know about my excavator system? Yes. Basically, I just summon this machine and get it to mine done into the ground. I can upgrade it and stuff using tokens and it gets better and better. Can you specify what you want it to mine? I can make it focus on a specific material, yes. Can you make it focus on just rocks? You want it to focus on just rocks? What for? For a weapon I want to craft. Ah, okay, just for you. Thank you. She appeared to be changing some settings before she made her way into the forest. I'll gather the resources now. Okay. Alright, now that Chloe was also gathering rocks, the process should be a little bit faster. In total I needed 100,000 rocks in order to craft enough ultra-hardened stone. I decided to write another line of code for my minion manager. On. If miner minion less than 20 and rocks greater than 600, craft miner minion. I decided to spend 10,000 of my future rocks on crafting miner minions before I started to save up for the craft. I still had no idea what the contract entailed, but I decided that I would deal with that once I gathered a significant amount of rocks. Now that I had resolved everything, for the time being, I decided to begin trekking into the forest and make my way to the mountain. The man was still here, however, so I wanted to make him do something useful at least. Actually, scratch that. I noticed that Bishop had returned from its scouting expedition. No settlement was detected in that direction. Oh my. I made my way toward the man. You. He looked up at me. Why is there no settlement where you said it was? He looked up at me in fear. He must have been planning to rob us while we went out to fight the settlement or something, or maybe he still had loyalties to the people he was a part of. Whatever the case, he wasn't useful to me anymore. I wonder what happens when you kill another human? I summoned my silver sword from my inventory. Any last words? I asked. And no. Wait, there's a reason, I dash. I don't care. In one swing, my blade fell through the air. He made one last beg, but he was more of an annoyance than a helpful tool. The sun glimmered on the edge of my blade, which was fit for an execution. Good night. The blade slashed through his body and he fell to the ground. After a few seconds, the ground was stained with the deep red color of blood. As he died, all of the items in his inventory fell onto the ground. X124, wood. X70, leaves. X11, meat. X48, rocks. X1, map. X1, mana crystal. X2, grenade. He didn't have many items, but a few things were of interest. First of all, he had a map. Upon looking at it, I noticed that it showed quite a large part of the map. On it, there were also a few settlements labeled. I still wasn't sure if I could trust it though. He also had a mana crystal, which I didn't know what it did. I assumed that it was either a material used in crafting recipes or maybe a power source. Finally, he had 2 grenades on his person. After inspecting them for a few seconds, they were like traditional military-style grenades. I wasn't exactly sure how he managed to get them, as they didn't seem to fit with the theme of his system. My only thought was that someone else provided him with them. Maybe they were like a last-ditch weapon or something. I was surprised that he didn't use them as I was about to kill him. I guess I must have caught him by too much surprise that he might have forgotten. Now that all the problems had finally been dealt with, I could go and gather some resources. Beside me, I now had all 3 of my elite minions, Rook, Bishop, and Knight. There were still a few hours until it became night, so I definitely had time to spend. I looked at the map and saw that the mountain I wanted to visit had already been drawn in. It matched up with where my minion said it was, so it seemed that the map could at least somewhat be trusted. I crafted a silver pickaxe and began my trek towards the mountain. I made my way into the harsh dense forest and walked through the loose dirt and numerous tree branches. In just a few minutes, I managed to see the edge of the large mountain. The number of trees lessened as I saw the great big mountain. It was covered in grass, like a field of green. I still had a little distance to go. Up close, the mountain was really quite enormous. It towered into the light blue sky. The top of the mountain had patches of white. It was tall enough that snow had gathered near the top. There was a small area where there was exposed stone. I made my way over and took my pickaxe out of my inventory. With 2 hands, I swung the pickaxe and smashed it into the side of the mountain. After doing so, my entire body felt the impact, but there was no noticeable dent in the mountain. Even so, I was informed that I had gathered some rocks. Plus 2 rocks. An hour or so later, my arms were now feeling like noodles. Using a pickaxe really takes a toll on you when you've never used one before. However, I had gathered quite a large amount of rocks. I checked how many rocks I had gathered in total. It appeared to be around 800. It was enough to craft a single other miner minion, so it was progress, I guess. I continued staring at the gray mountainside as I took a break. The sun was still bright and strong, so I still had more work to do today. After a short breather, I heaved myself up and lifted my pickaxe once again, rotating my entire body. I slammed the pickaxe into the mountain, causing small particles of stone to be dispersed. Plus 2 rocks. Again and again, I continued working with the pickaxe. Plus 3 rocks. Plus 1 rocks. Plus 2 rocks. Plus 3 rocks. Plus 3 rocks. Plus 3 rocks. Plus 1 rocks. Plus 1 rocks. This was getting really tiring. My arms couldn't go on any longer and I was forced to take another break. I guess this was what I was going to be doing for the rest of the day. It wasn't like there was really anything more productive for me to be doing. After another short break, I lifted the heavy pickaxe up from the ground. My arms were practically numb at this point, but on the bright side, it wasn't like I could feel the pain either. I swung it, smashing the rough mountainside until the lactic acid buildup in my arms made it physically impossible to keep on going. I continued to do so for the next few hours. After collecting quite a large amount of rocks, I decided to start making my way back to the settlement. The sky was beginning to darken and before long, we would be fighting zombies again. Through the woods, I observed the map a little more to check its accuracy. It had marked some places with some symbols which I decided to check the reliability of. For the most part, the mountain was accurate and so was most of the forestry, although most of the world as I knew it was a forest. After a little while, I got to camp and took a seat. Chloe looked like she had already returned and she began walking toward me. "Hey, you're back, I was waiting for you. How much stone did you collect?" No greeting? "Well, I collected a few thousand." She began transferring the items to me. "Anyways, where did the man go?" "I killed him." But weren't you using him for information?" "Turns out he was lying to us." You hate liars, don't you? But aren't you a big liar yourself?" "I don't have anything against liars. It's just that he became useless the moment I found out that he was a liar." Are you a psychopath? Speak for yourself." But William, I am a normal girl, that's the truth, even if I don't seem like it." That phrase seemed to have some self-awareness in it. The truth was, I didn't know anything about Chloe, and I was starting to realize that there was more to her than what meets the eye. Oh well, that would be for future me to find out. Anyways, what are we having for dinner? The same as last night. Can't we have something new? Such as? As we were talking, my minion manager came over to me. "I've got the end-of-day report." End of day report. Total resources gathered. X1461, wood. X20, leaves. X79, meat. X984, rocks. X2, ultra-hardened stone. X6, iron. Other. X31, scout minions crafted. X3, minion hut built. X3, minor minions crafted. Slowly but surely, my army was growing larger. There weren't any casualties today, but several of my minions did come back injured. The attackers were still out in the forest, but having combat minion escort the resource-gathering minions was a good idea. I began cooking the meat on the fire as usual. It was kind of bland without any sort of seasoning though. I would have liked at least some salt and pepper or maybe some butter with it. "So do you have any leads on where you think the kidnappers might be?" she asked. "Well, I managed to acquire a map when I killed the man and there are quite a few markings on it." "Can it be trusted?" "I was confirming the accuracy of it today and it seems to be correct for the most part." That's good. Are there any settlements labeled?" "There are 2. I took out the map and showed her. I would like to finish crafting my sword so you'll probably have to deal with them by yourself. I'll send Rook and Knight with you though." "Oh, you want me to fight them off by myself? If it gets really bad just send one of my minions back to inform me." "Don't worry, you'll be fine, probably." "Hey, that doesn't sound too good." "Oh well." After a decent while, the steak began to char on the fire and the smell of it filled the area. I took mine and bit into it. It was pretty bland, but it was food. The 2 of us ate in silence as I thought about how to optimize my resource gathering strategy. Suddenly, I received a notification. "You have leveled up." Level up. Level 6-level 7. Rewards. Unlocked. Enchantments. Unlocked. Enchanting menu. Unlocked. Repair menu. All equipment plus 1 enchantment slot. More crafting recipes. Inventory space, plus 3000. Ooh, what was this? Enchantments? I opened up the enchanting menu. Enchanting menu. Select equipment to enchant. I selected my silver pickaxe. Enchanting menu. Silver pickaxe. Available enchantment slots, 2. Enchanting cost, 2 tokens. 2 tokens wasn't too bad, so without much thought, I paid the price and waited for my enchantment to appear. Enchanting menu. New enchantment. Reliability I. Decreases durability loss by 60%. Okay, so the first upgrade only affected durability, although it seemed to be a pretty large buff. I had 2 open enchantment slots on my pickaxe, so I could put on another. For another 2 tokens, I enchanted it again. Enchanting menu. New enchantment. Lightweight eye. Decreases weight of equipment by 50%. I pulled my silver pickaxe out of my inventory and noticed that it was in fact much lighter than it was before. That was quite a welcome surprise, as now it would be significantly easier to grind for rocks. With that, I was given the option to enchant it again. You must replace one of your current enchantments if you wish to get another. I decided that the reliability enchantment wasn't that necessary. Time to spend 2 more tokens.
Thank you so much. Visit us more for more novels, please. Like, subscribe to our channel.